And next up, we have a man by the name of...
Do you want my real name or my character name?
Same question that Sean asked. Your name.
My name's Luke.
Correct. Thank you very much for joining me, Luke. How are you? I know this is not really the sort of podcast where we ask that sort of question, but how are you?
I'm alright. I'm not too bad. So I'm excited to finally be recording some stuff for our podcast.
Excellent, yeah.
Hopefully the potential listeners are just as excited.
Well, let's hope so. Let's not nose it up too early. Let's hope that we can keep them at least interested to the end of this show, if nothing else.
Yeah, I'm thinking of ways to alienate them already, so this is really good.
Absolutely. I think swearing will probably be a good start. You are going to be playing the campaign as... What is your character name?
My character name is Dabov. He does have a last name, but he doesn't use it, and is quite reluctant to reveal it as well, so just Dabov.
He's the Cher / Madonna of our game. Then I assume.
Yeah, like he kind of, I don't know how much you want me to go into the backstory right now, but he kind of left home when he was quite young. Just had no interest in hanging around and sort of no interest in the family either. So he didn't see the use of the family name. It wasn't on bad terms. It wasn't it wasn't through neglect or anything. He just wanted to explore the world and buggered off, basically. And parents didn't feel the need to pursue him either, so it was a bit of a mutual disinterest, I'd say.
Fair enough. I'm sure we'll get into more of that in the story.
Yep.
Obviously, being very teasy there with the backstory, I guess. What if I hadn't already have guessed? What is your what is Dabov's class?
He is a rogue. So I didn't want to play him as the sort of stereotypical steal everything, edgelord rogue that a lot of people play. But so he's kind of, I know you haven't asked yet, but his background is sort of an urchin. So he's sort of lived rough, and the rogue side of things is kind of from necessity rather than a chosen career. Like he is sort of, he's a decent guy.
A survivalist rather than an out-and-out thief.
Yeah, and again, we haven't covered it yet, but he's a gnome, so strength was obviously never going to be a strong point, so he kind of had to rely on a bit of intelligence, a bit of charm, that sort of thing, to sort of get by on the rough streets. But obviously his small stature kind of helped to some degree. He's quite not sort of... what's the word I'm looking for? Doesn't have the biggest stature, so not very intimidating, so he tended to go by unnoticed, so obviously dexterity and intelligence were kind of his forte, really.
Of course. Obviously a gnome, like you say, probably stands out to some degree being a gnome, but
yeah.
In the gnome community, does he have any sort of distinguishing features, any tattoos, what does make him stand out from any other gnomes, or does he not? Does he try and slip into the crowd and unnoticed?
Tries to sort of stay unnoticed, really, as part of being, of the homeless ilk. They do tend to go unnoticed, so he's obviously not the best kept in the world, never saw the need to. He's quite sort of intelligent, I guess. He's quite curious is probably his main drive. So keeping, prim and proper was never in his interest. He'd rather be doing something productive than keeping looking pretty, really. So.
Cool. Is he, being a rogue, would it be fair to say he's going to be chaotic neutral, or do you have an alignment in line for him?
I was thinking more sort of chaotic good. So ultimately he's kind of driven by his curiosity, so will maybe do things that are maybe seen as not the best, but that's more out of curiosity than spite or, being nasty. But he also, the chaotic part comes from just, he's very impulsive. So good at heart, I'd say. If faced with a dilemma, he'd probably do the best he could, but he's often completely oblivious to the dilemma to begin with. So yeah.
Will his teammates like him?
I don't know. I hope so. I think he'd want to be liked by everyone, but it's not his ultimate goal to be liked. It's he'll do the right thing if faced with a decision. It's just making him notice that decision. If there's a shiny object in the room, or some bit of sort of mechanism that he wants to just go and investigate, he might just not even notice the other people in the room.
Mm. I didn't ask this of my other victims, but do you, obviously with a lot of the classes, you have a subclass to think about going forward? Arcane Trickster?
Yes, yeah, I was thinking of going for Arcane Trickster, because I think the curiosity also is kind of mixed a bit with being a bit tricky anyway, sort of, again, out of necessity from living on the rough streets as a gnome. He's had to learn to be a bit tricky with it, and a little bit of a sense of humour, but maybe on the dark side of humour, maybe. The more sort of playing pranks and just doing stuff to see what happens. So I think Arcane Trickster will suit that well, especially sort of mage hand when it comes around, perfect for pranks and the like.
Yeah, certainly sounds more fitting of the classic builds than thief or assassin.
Yeah,
from what you're telling.
Yeah, I didn't want it to just be an edgelord. It's just more have fun with it, and I can basically do whatever I want. Is the plan?
Yeah, you're going to be, I guess, a bit more cheeky than naughty.
Yeah, no ill intent, unless someone happens to get on the wrong side or what have you. But pranks on NPCs and store owners are par for the course, I think.
Good stuff. I gave you the task of picking an uncommon magic item.
Yep.
To start your character off with. What did you go for, and why did you choose that item?
I went with the immovable rod, I think it was called, which basically it's a rod. I think it's quite plain from the description, with a button on the end that can basically be locked in place anywhere, essentially. Whether it defies gravity or not, it can basically just stay floating in midair if need be. And if I remember right, the strength stats to overwrite that are quite exceptionally high. Yeah, so
immovable, essentially.
Yeah, I think you'd have to be very lucky. I think it's like a roll of 30, isn't it, on strength to actually move it or something.
Right.
But
okay.
I just picked that because I think it's got some uses, just like barricading doors, sort of things like that, and also the idea of playing pranks with it, to be honest. I think it'd suit the character well. I don't think it'd be the most practical in the world, but I think it'll have some uses, but more in line with the trickster element, I think.
I think these items like that have obviously got their moments. There must be something that it's going to be useful for. It might not be useful in every instance. So, for example, you could have taken a weapon that you're going to get a lot of use out of, because you could use it essentially every day. Whereas the immovable rod might be something that you use once, in real terms, but it might, for all it might end up being the most important thing that you guys need. You're never going to know until you're playing the game what you're going to need, when you're going to need it, and obviously with a character like a rogue, I suspect you're going to be thinking outside the box and trying to avoid, maybe not trying to avoid combat, but trying to think of different ways of doing things. And I thought it suited that more so than just a nice sword or a nice cloak, that helps with stealth or whatever, which would be more suitable for a rogue. But I'm more into the role playing side of Dungeons and Dragons, so combat, fine, we'll get through it. Whereas the role playing, I want that to be as interesting as possible from my point of view, obviously. And that's obviously going to help us as a podcast, because realistically, if we just have a podcast where there's 5 barbarians just grinding through battle every time, just swinging axes, no one's going to want to listen to that. It's going to be the role play that makes or breaks us as an entertaining source.
Yeah, exactly.
Good stuff. Okay, last thing that we're going to do then is we're going to do some stat rolling. So as you're aware, I need you to roll 4d6s 6 times.
Yep.
Now, what I'm going to offer you as a chance is if you roll any combined scores of 7 or below, I will allow you to re-roll some or all of those dice. However, as a penalty for doing so, for every dice that you re-roll, you'll lose 1 point off of one of your other stats. So you can re-roll just one dice if you so wish, and happily take the 1 point penalty elsewhere if it helps you boost a little bit. Okay, so that's,
as long as I get
that's the payoff.
High, I'm all right. Do I have to decide that at the time, or can I?
You will have to decide whether to re-roll today, but you don't necessarily have to decide where you take the penalty. That's up for you and your gods to decide. But you will have to decide, and we will have you re-roll today. So let's roll. Maybe you won't need it. If all of yours are 8 and above, you're fine. It's if you get 7 or below.
I reckon I can deal with 1 7 or below, because strength is not a priority for my character at all. So if I rolled a 3, I'd be happy with that.
You say that 7 is a -3 modifier, so it's quite a damaging roll. So.
True, very true. Right, so it's just 4d6. We're not doing.
4d6.
Do any of them get discarded?
So 4d6. You discard the lowest of the 4.
Right. First roll is 9. 5, 3, and 1. Yeah, 9.
Okie dokie. What did you discard then? Another 1?
Yeah, really good start.
It's not bad. It's an acceptable score.
Yeah, I can live with it. If that's my lowest one, I'll be happy. Right,
exactly.
Second roll is this one's better. Holy shit, that's not bad. 6, 4, and 5. That's 15 by my count.
Lovely.
I'll take that.
Excellent. Yep.
That is another 9.
Another 9. Okay.
That's good. 6, 4, and 4. 14.
14. It's obviously worth reminding yourselves and the listeners at home that your class and your race, you do get some bonuses on top of those anyway. So even with a 9, you might end up boosting that to a 10 or 11 anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is a very good one. 6, 6, and 5. So what's that?
17.
Jesus, I will definitely take that.
Sure you don't want to re-roll that?
One of them was a 1, but, a bit pointless if it's getting discarded. So what's this? Last one. Okay.
Last one.
I'm quite liking these stats so far. This is... I can discard one of the 3s. 6, 5, and 3. So what's that? 11, 14.
14. Very nice set of rolls, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't even have to fudge any of them, which was nice.
Exactly. No need to take any...
I have to admit, I was worried because, as I don't know if you mentioned it with Stuart, but some of us did make our characters before, and I did quite well then, but actually I think this is probably better. So I'm very happy with that.
Good stuff then.
2 9s I could maybe do without, but...
Which is, the 9s are a -1 modifier. It's not ideal, but realistically, as a rogue, you'll probably, I suspect you'll probably dump that in strength.
Yeah.
Maybe wisdom or I don't know. What would you throw that under? Constitution, maybe.
Maybe constitution or maybe wisdom, because I need dexterity is obviously the highest because that's what all my attack stuff is, as far as I know. And wisdom because of the trickster. Not wisdom, sorry, intelligence because of the trickster element. I'd like to keep that high. To try and
is that your intelligence is your spellcasting ability? Yeah. So you want that to be your 17 and 15, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I can live with that.
Very respectable set of rolls.
Relief,
well
if I'm honest.
Yeah, I know. A bit of behind the scenes. Luke was probably the most vocal about not wanting to re-roll his character. But at the end of the day, you said role playing is the key for you in playing, and realistically, if you'd ended up with 6 9s for argument's sake, it's not ideal by any means, but that would have just had to have made you play around with your character a bit more and made you a bit more role played and combatty for argument's sake.
True. So, which was you whittled me down on the re-rolling. So, and in all fairness, I think it has paid off. I'll have to compare it to my original stats on my paper sheet that I did ages ago, but yeah.
Regardless, unless you had 6 18s, that's a pretty good run of scores. So.
Yeah, I'm actually very happy with that. I think I've got more penalties overall than my last one because I've got two 9s, but I think the bonuses are higher. Like the higher rolls were higher, but then there was more low rolls. But I can, like you say, dump those into a stat that I don't need. I can't remember what the stats are now, to be honest.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Lovely. Anything else that you'd like to sound Dabov before we go?
No, I'm very excited to get started. Obviously we've had our practice campaign that we didn't record. There's been great fun. and there's been sessions that I wish we had recorded. So now that we are ready to go, I think it's going to be a good podcast, hopefully, which I hope people do enjoy.
Only one set of people will be able to tell us whether it's a good podcast, and I'm sure the internet will provide. Lovely. Thank you very much, Luke. Thank you very much, Dabov, and we will be seeing you and hearing you soon.
Yep. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast app to ensure you don't miss any future instalments of Dice and Desire. And in the meantime, if you want to interact with us, come and find us on Twitter and Instagram @Dice and Desire.